Hi guys, happy Tuesday. I missed last week. Sorry about that. We started a new medical record system here at Dixon Medical Associates, and it's been a hot mess. I've been a hot mess. I still am a hot mess. The clinic's still a hot mess. So thank you for everybody that has been patient with us and with every provider's office at Dixon Medical Associates because it's been a struggle. The struggle's been real to try to get implementing this new medical record system, and it continues to be that way. In addition to that, I'm in the middle of doing Clear Path Medical. We had our first consult. Yay, I'm very excited about that. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, you need to go back and catch up on the news about what's happening with us at the end of the year. If you are interested in working with Clear Path Medical, please send an email to contact@clearpathmedical.net. If you're interested in doing a thyroid or hormone replacement consult only, right now we're taking a handful of people, so you can send an email there and we will touch base at that point. But once again, thank you to everybody who's been patient with us for the last week because it's been quite crazy. So this is something I wanted to talk to you about last week, and I didn't get done with clinic until like 8 o'clock at night. But as providers, we often get publications randomly sent to us. And most of them I throw in the trash, honestly, because they're just advertisement for pharmaceutical companies and medications. And I just toss them. I don't even read them. But this one caught my eye. So I'm going to show it to you. You see it? It's the Psychiatric Times. I don't know why I get the Psychiatric Times. I'm not a psychiatrist, nor do I ever want to be a psychiatrist, but I got this one. This is the September edition. And on the front cover, it was the plastic crisis. And a couple of months ago, we did a video on a study that was looking at microplastics that was found in plaque that had been taken out of carotid arteries, and finding that a lot of people who had blockage of carotid arteries, it was actually microplastics in there. And then they correlated the microplastics to poor cardiovascular outcomes. So when I saw this, that's what I thought of. And I was like, how in the world does microplastics affect psychiatric conditions? And one, I really love this picture. I'm going to show it to you again. Oh, see? It's like a brain mounted on plastics and looks all nasty, but yeah, not good. So microplastics are little bitty teeny particles, and they are found everywhere in our world. They have been found on top of Mount Everest. They've been found in the deepest parts of the ocean. I mean, they're everywhere. One estimation is that there's about 14 million tons of microplastic right now on our Earth. That's 14 million tons of microplastics everywhere. And because they are so small, once they get in the body, they have the ability to change the cells of our body and wreak havoc in there. In the US alone right now, according to this article, one plastic plant puts out enough carbon emissions to equal 116 coal plants. That's a lot of carbon emissions. You want to talk about environment type things? This seems like where we should be putting our money at right now, because not one US plastic plant, just the US based plastic plants equal to 116 coal plants. I'm like, oh my goodness. And these emissions that come from those plants have been known to cause neurocognitive changes, specifically things such as ADHD, dementias, and Parkinson's. Those are all conditions that I, in my 20 years of practice, have seen skyrocket. They are going off the charts. And we think there's a whole bunch of different reasons. Me personally, I think it is our food source and possibly our environmental exposures that are happening. We did another study, looked at it a while back, on plastics and being endocrine disruptors, meaning that they're linked to obesity. So now we've seen plastics, microplastic linked to obesity, changes making us fatter, and also causing more heart disease. This isn't a study, it's just connecting some dots with microplastics and neurocognitive and cognitive disorders. So let's talk about how these things get in us. And the article spent a lot of time on how they get in us. The first is from spillage of plastic pellets. So they're made in the factory plants, and then they have to be transported somewhere to made into product. Well, sometimes there are crashes, and sometimes boats spill over. And these pellets, they had another funny word for them. I don't remember what it is, but the little pellets of plastic spill out, and then they diffuse into the water. They diffuse into the soil. And while we grow our food out of the soil and we eat things out of the water, and they get in us, then the plastic gets in us that way. It's in the air. Microplastics are around you. And that one just kind of makes me want to have a little moment of anxiety thinking about that. But from normal textiles, clothing, that has plastic in it. As you wash it, as it wears down, as it absorbs through your skin, it can get in you that way from things like carpet and curtains. They have little plastic pieces in them, and as they degrade, they kind of diffuse into the air. Plastic flooring. We have seen plastic flooring skyrocket because while we're trying to be more environmentally friendly and not kill all the trees, well, we're kind of killing ourselves and the rest of the environment at the same time by using the plastic flooring. Outside, when you go outside and you think I'm in nature, well, things like brake dust, paint, and general pollution is all in our air, and it does have microplastics in it. So it's in our food. There is extensive microplastics found in the ocean, and it's mainly from us humans doing bad things, putting our trash there when it shouldn't go there. 1 liter of plastic water bottle, so a water bottle is 1 liter, has 240,000 detectable microplastics and nanoparticles in its water. 1 liter of water. When you microwave food that's in a plastic container, the nanoparticles are released and put into the food. Plastic tea bags. How many people love some tea? You put that in hot, the heat reacts with the plastic, the little nanoparticles go out, and then you're drinking them down, drinking them in. Your personal care products, like your shampoos and your lotions, they often have plastics to give you that smoother texture, that smoother, less coarse hair, which I kind of need a little bit of that right now, but I'm not putting some plastics on my hair to get there. So they're everywhere. It kind of makes you feel like germs. They're everywhere. But once in the body, they enter the circulation. And then they get into the body tissues. Get this, they're found in the placentas. So the things that are holding our babies, the amniotic fluid, the things that are around our babies, the testes, the things that make our babies, the liver, the thing that filters all of our toxins or most of our toxins, the kidney, the other thing that filters our toxins, our spleens, filters the blood. It's found in our joints, our hearts, and our brain. So these nanoparticles get in through the circulation and they go out everywhere. Now, there's not been a whole bunch of studies on human subjects other than the one with the carotid artery or the carotid plaques that they removed, but they have looked at animal studies with brain and plastics. And what they have found is they see changes in animal models of neuroinflammation. The brain becomes very inflamed when exposed to plastic, and it can become inflamed in a way that changes the neurotransmitter expression. So basically think of your conditions like Parkinson's and MS and things where the message is not transferring through the brain like it's supposed to be transferring. That is what neurotransmitter expression means. And then it can even cause cell death. And in cell death, that's more of like your dementias and your Alzheimer's and things like that. So I already talked about it being in the human placentas and in the blood vessels, but that means we're actually setting our kids up for these changes, the ADHD, the cognitive changes, the dementias down the road, the heart disease, and maybe that's part of the reason why we're seeing a lot of these things happen sooner. Now, this next part, you might have to follow me here for a minute, but plastics disrupt our microbiome. So we eat them, we get in there, they cause inflammation and things. So what they do is they disrupt the endothelial junctions, and then they accumulate in those junctions. So the endothelial junctions is the linking between your cells. And if you've ever heard the term leaky gut, it's when those junctions are kind of broken or they're stressed out or they're whatnot, and you get toxins that are released into the body. Well, these microplastics cause that dysfunction. So you absorb more microtoxins back into your body, and the plastics are lining those junctions so they stay disrupted. So this changes our microbiome too. So when this is disrupted and they're accumulating, the good bacteria and the bad bacteria, they're not mixing the way they're supposed to. And it leaves more bad bacteria, more toxic stuff in your gut, which produces biofilms. And let me tell you, I had some PTSD with the word biofilm, because when we were at our previous clinic over by Taco Bell, just down the road before we moved here, we had one of our sewer lines backed up. And it turns out there was a biofilm in it, and you should have seen the mess they were taking out. But the visual there of this gelatinous 100-foot long something coming out of the sewer system being in our gut, this biofilm that's disrupting, it's like, oh, and if plastics can start that. So regardless, when we increase this biofilm, we now have more permeable getting the toxins out. We're increasing this inflammatory cytokines into our blood system. Inflammatory cytokines lead to things like heart disease, stroke, inflammation, dementias, all those kind of things, and increases oxidative stress. And oxidative stress causes cell damage and cell death in every part of our body in a bad way. You've probably heard of BPA or BAPA, and that's something I talked about in the previous video. It's now being removed from a lot of our products, but that is one that we have very clear evidence, very clear things that links it back to things like heart disease, dementia, ADHD, all kind of cognitive disorders, even speculating with autism there. It was in our baby bottles and all over our beverage, and now we're moving away, and it definitely has been indicated in those conditions, but it also has been indicated in mood disorders and anxiety. And that was our first, I feel like BAPA was our first microplastic, nanoplastic that really got us all thinking about, hey, this is a problem. And to know that it has been linked with neurodevelopment problems, neurocognitive things, and with anxiety, depression, mood disorders, it's pretty scary. It really is. Which leads me to, how big of an issue is this? How much plastic were we actually producing? So in 1980, there was 72 million tons of plastic produced worldwide. In 2020, just 4 years ago, we were up at 445 million tons of plastic, and it's estimated to be double that by the year 2040. We have become so reliant on plastic that it literally is everywhere. I tried to count from the time that I woke up to the time that I left my house, how many times I touched or come into contact with plastic. I quit counting after a while. I was like, this is just making me more terrified. So what do we do? Because if we put the plastics in the landfill that we have, they're going to leak into the soil. And when they're exposed to UV light, guess what? They break down and they aerosolize and get in the air more, and they get more in the soil. Recycling is not really a great option for most plastics because there's many that are single use, meaning they can't be recycled. There have been several states that are they're trying to step in and say, hey, let's stop using plastic food containers for restaurants and move to something else that's more environmentally friendly, like cardboard type things. That's helpful. There's been federal legislation that has tried to get moved through calling break free from plastic, but it was not passed. It was shut. The UN's trying to limit the plastics that are out there. They're trying to create a global plastic treaty, but who knows if that's going to go through. The bottom line is there's a lot of money tied up in this. And just like anything, when there's a lot of money tied up in it, it's really hard to make change. Because we're talking about jobs, we're talking about the day in, day in life, day in, day out life, and we're just talking about people's pocketbooks. And so that's where we run into with big pharma, big food, and now big plastic that is, all right, how do we make changes when so much money is tied up in this? And like I said in that previous video, I really felt helpless when I read that study. How in the world can I make a dent in this plastic crisis? How do I protect myself? How do I protect my family? And the long story short is they are everywhere and we can't remove them all. They're here to stay. We can't remove them all. But you can minimize. You can remove some of the ones that are the biggest hits to you. So let's stop drinking out of plastic water bottles. Let's start using refillable metal ones. Let's stop storing our food in plastic containers. Get rid of that Tupperware, especially if it's old. Get rid of the single-use things. I know that a lot of like the people that put food here in the clinic, it's cold. And if you put food in the plastic container when it's cold, you're minimizing that. And then you don't reheat it. So if you've bought food from a container that's plastic, don't reheat it. I know Justine at Meals by Justine that does the, or just bowls, whichever one she's going by, but she does a cardboard bowl, which I love that now. It makes me feel better that she's doing that. So let's make steps to do those things in our own home. Use your silverware and wash that silverware. Stop using plastic forks. Don't use plastic coffee mug lids because then you're drinking straight from the hot and it's getting in you. Minimize those where you can. Buy products, personal care products that are plastic free or at least BAPA free if you can do that. If you want to get super into things, you can look at doing a reverse osmosis filter in your home, but then you're going to have to add electrolytes. And because when you reverse osmosis filter the water, it takes out electrolytes and mineral. And then my husband said, well, what are you going to do? Just add it back with the minerals that are in a plastic container? And I was like, no, I don't know. I don't have a solution for that one yet, but You can use a filter to remove some of those things and supplement your electrolytes a different way, but let's for sure get rid of the biggest things, which is stop eating and drinking out of plastic and do your part to reduce the amount of plastics that are in your home, knowing that they could disrupt the brain chemistry, the heart, affect our future generations. All of that it's important, and we got to start paying attention, and we got to start doing things about it, or we're just going to get sicker. So I hope you've enjoyed this little chat. I hope it was not too disheveled and organized, and because I'm still kind of in that state of that while I'm working at it. If you have an upcoming appointment with us, or check your calendar and check to see if you have an upcoming appointment with us, because in addition to all this craziness, we're having a ton of no-shows right now, which is very difficult because we want to get as many people in as we can before the end of the year under their insurance model. And when we have people no show, well, one, I can't pay my bills, but also I can't get more people in. So please check your calendars. And if you have an appointment, please show up. If you're interested in Clear Path Medical, that's contact@clearpathmedical.net. If you are headed to Keto Palooza, it is this weekend, and my husband and I will be there. So make sure you come by, give me a high five, handshake, give me a hug. I don't care. I'm good with that. But visit our table about Clear Path Medical and have a chat with us too. So look forward to seeing you at Keto Palooza if you're going to be there. And hopefully I'll see you guys here again next Tuesday. Until then, stay well and stay healthy.